Praggnanandhaa played the fried liver attack, a very risky opening today in the ninth round of Tata Steel Chess 2024 against the Women's World Champion Wenjun. Well, how did it go? Here we are, e4. He starts the game with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and knight f6. It was a new venue today in the amphitheater. It was all dark with the spotlight on the chessboard. Beautiful venue. Knight f6 was played by Wenjun and Pragg goes knight g5. Well, a very risky decision. He's played around 43 games and out of that he had played knight g5 in only one game against Hans Niemann. So yes, must be a big surprise for Wenjun. She goes for d5, blocks the attack on f7. Praggnanandhaa takes on d5. Knight goes to a5, attacks this bishop. Bishop b5 check, and there you go, c6, blocking the check, takes the pawn. This is all theory. Praggnanandhaa was amazingly prepared. B takes c6, and now here he goes back bishop d3. Well, the line also goes bishop e2, which is one of the main line. He decides to go bishop d3. Knight goes to d5. The queen attacks this knight. You don't have time to take this on h7. You can go back and bishop will develop to d6. That's the normal way to continue. Pragg went h4. It's also played in the modern times, played by Firuza Nepo. So h4 defends the knight. Over here, queen c7 was played, because if you don't play if you play bishop d6 and try to develop your bishop, the queen will jump in. There's attack here. You cannot castle because h7 is weak. Eventually you will play queen c7, but then you should be worrying about bishop h7 and h5. So it would get very complex. So queen c7 is the line, and at this point of time Praggnanandhaa makes a move which is a novelty. It has never been played before, and he goes b3. So yes, it's the new move. Wenjun went into a thought right now what is to be done here, and bishop h7 has also been played in a few games. Bishop h7 here. Let me just quickly show you, where black goes g6, trying to trap the bishop. h5, of course you want your bishop to open, and queen e7, a nice move attacking this knight. d3, defending the knight, but knight f4 again blocking the defense here. Takes, and this is all have been played very few games, one or two games, but black gets out of the trouble, and it's white who is in fact going to be in trouble. And here we have these crazy complicated lines with a lot of material imbalance. That's how this opening is. But instead of b3, a normal way to continue would be knight c3, h6 and knight f3. But Pragg brings up a novelty on the board. It was b3. Wenjun, after some thought, goes for h6. She continues normally. The knight goes back to e4, and f5 was played in the game. Here Praggnanandhaa had a choice whether to go knight g3 or whether to go knight c3, because with knight g3 there's a lot coming in. G6, firstly stopping e4, bishop e2, here g6 stopping the checks, and then the game would have continued. But knight c3 was more practical and simpler, challenging the d5 knight over here. She goes back with the knight, but maybe a better idea could have been to go into f4, attacking here and here, forcing the bishop to go back and developing this bishop with c5 incoming, a beautiful intermezzo there, attacking this rook. So this could have been a possibility. Well, in the game what happened was knight f6 played by Wenjun, bishop b2. Pragg simply develops the bishop, and he is having a square for his knight as well, because you can see on the queen side he has very less space, and his pieces also need to develop. He's behind in development. So bishop d6, knight goes to a3, e4, the bishop goes back. No, the bishop doesn't go back. In fact, here Pragg goes queen e2, pinning here, and when Wenjun goes castle, he finds a nice move which is bishop a6, trying to exchange the light square bishop. At this point of time, Wenjun could have taken or could have gone bishop e6. She chooses bishop e6, but for sure a better idea would have been to take here, and after taking, white wants to long castle. So to stop the idea with knight g4, attacking f1, attacking f2, because if you go rook f2, there is knight h2, and obviously you're not gonna like a draw here. So after knight g4, I would wonder what Praggnanandhaa had in mind to long castle, because if he tries to go knight c4 and then knight takes c4, queen takes c4 check, the king moves in, still he cannot long castle. So maybe here is what he would have had something in his mind, some preparation, some long castle and giving some pawn, maybe. Or if nothing, there was always a repetition. But Ju Wenjun goes bishop e6 there, and Praggnanandhaa goes knight c4, bishop went to b4. Obviously black did not want to give this bishop, so she moves, long castle by Praggnanandhaa. Now this king is very safe. Plus you can see the structure against the king here with so many ideas incoming. So long castle, black over here goes knight b7 was played by Ju Wenjun. Rook a8 was an option and maybe could have been considered. She goes knight b7. Pragg makes a very interesting decision here. He just simply takes the knight. Queen takes b7, and here he decides to break open the structure with f3, challenging the center. Rook goes to e8 and defends the center, because if you go f takes e4, there is an intermezzo bishop c3 here, and then the knight would jump in. So that's the reason. Rook a8, Pragg goes knight e5, absolutely not worrying about any discovered attack here, because ab3, rook e5 and discovered attack will be backfired with the bishop attacking and the knight coming in as a check. So so after knight e5, bishop b3 was not played. A good idea for Ju Wenjun could have been to go knight h5 here, where she's eyeing for these dark squares. That could have been a good idea. But in the game, what she plays is rook a e8, knight e5, c5. She goes c5, trying to create some counterplay, also to defend e4 pawn with the queen. Now here Pragg makes a very classy move. He goes rook h e1, gets rid of any such ideas with knight g3 4, as well as he prepares himself for if takes here, this rook is there on the open file. So rook h e1 by Pragg, e takes f3, g takes f3, and g file is opened. Knight goes to h5, he goes rook g1, and there you go. That was the dream scenario of the novelty, the 10th move b3. That is what the Pragg was eyeing for. Ju Wenjun gives up a pawn, but there is no disco, unfortunately. Queen goes back to e7. a3, a very nice move, asking her a decision. What are you going to do with the bishop? Are you going to go back or capture here? She takes the knight, bishop takes c3, and g7 is completely in a massacre. Queen takes h4, queen e5. Pragg threatens a checkmate soon after rook g7, so she goes back and defends. Rook goes to e1, pinning this over here. So queen moves, knight jumps in, attacks the rook. The rook goes to e7. Pragg goes back with his queen. A very nice little clever move, attacking the knight, and when the knight goes back, there you go. There is a pin, so queen takes h6. She takes the knight, a full piece, but then bishop f6 as well. And it's the move number 33rd. There was time pressure, but the position is lost. Pragg is already, you can see, 2 pawns up, plus the king is weak. Ju Wenjun resigns here. With this, this is Pragg's second win in Tata Steel Chess 2024, and he's beaten two world champions, reigning world champions. One was Ding Liren, and the second one today, women's world champion Ju Wenjun. So by doing that, Pragg also joins the leaderboard, just to show you here, and Praggnanandhaa, Gukesh, Noderbek and Anish Giri leading the event with 5.5 out of 9. That was the game for today.